Okay, I was at great pains to try to decide on a title for this video, and I came up with the problems that all games on the American Revolution have. And that's what I'm going to try to discuss in this video. And this is unscripted. Maybe I'm rambling all over the place, but let me try to explain. Okay, so I will expand on that comment a bit. When I refer to the problems, I am not referring to games on particular battles or campaigns, like Guilford Courthouse here by GTW, or 1777 by Strategy and Tactics. These cover particular campaigns, so I'm not talking about those type games. So for example, I'm including my own game here, War for America, which has the same problem that 1776 had, and I've got a list here of other games that had the same problem. 1775 by Academy, American Revolution, Decision in North America by S&T, End of Empire by Compass, Give Me Liberty, Liberty or Death by GMT, Liberty by Columbia, and Washington's War by GMT. All of those games, since they cover the entire American Revolution, suffer from the same problem. Now, I'm not taking a backhanded slap at these games. I mean, this is my own game here, and it's got the same problems that all the other games have. It's just an inherent problem, and that's what I'm going to try to describe. Now, the first American Revolution game that I ever owned was this one, 1972, The American Revolution by James Dunnigan. And the odd thing is that this game does not seem to have some of the problems that appeared in other games. And don't worry, we'll get to those problems. Two games on the American Revolution that came out much later were Tarleton's Quarter, The Revolutionary War in the South, Almost a Miracle, The Revolutionary War in the North. And these two games, according to my criteria, do not suffer from the problem I'm describing. Why? Because they're two separate games. The designer decided to do just the Revolution in the South, and a different designer later on, doing a sequel, did just the Revolution in the North. Now, I know up to about, 4 years ago, the designer was talking about marrying the two games and having one gigantic game on the Revolution. And that brings us to the core of the problem. It's not a good idea to try to have these two games join. The war in the South and the war in the North, for all intents and purposes, are really two separate wars. Yes, they're all part of the American Revolution, of course, but they're two separate things. So when I tackled the problem, and I tried to do the whole war myself, I thought I could get around it by showing you that the Caribbean after 1778 is what mattered. That's all the British and the French cared about. And I know Americans don't want to hear this, but, sorry, that's just the truth. The 13 colonies didn't matter much to Britain after 1778. The war would be won or lost in the Caribbean. And that's why the British sent huge forces there to protect it or take some French territory. And that's why the French sent fleets there to contest the Caribbean. The French really couldn't give a hoot about the 13 colonies. They were just glad to have Britain throwing resources against it. But the war would be decided elsewhere. Now, that didn't mean that the war in the South didn't matter. It did. And the British did put up a pretty good fight and a show in the South. And that's in my game too. But in the North, in my second scenario, the French are in, you're going to see the British dilemma. And it's a dilemma. For example, you've got the Royal Army, the remnants of it, they evacuate to New York. That causes the Battle of Monmouth. Washington's army is here, and a small northern army under Gates there. Quebec is still held by Governor Haldimand. But the war in the North boils down to skirmishes and raids and foraging. That's what I got from that book on foraging 1778. But in a war game, it's hard to simulate that. I mean, how can you tell somebody what you can hardwire into the rules? Oh, by the way, you can't move Washington for 4 years. He just sits there. Same with the British. That wouldn't be a game. Gamers don't like that. They want movement. They want activity. That's why the American Revolution has that inherent problem. You can't simulate that properly. So, which is why I tried to do it by having the Caribbean the main theater. Whether I succeeded or not, well, that's another issue entirely. So what I thought I would do now is do a playthrough of my second scenario and see what some of the options are. But I can tell you right now, the options for the British will not be winning the war in the North. The war in the North is over. Holding on to New York and maybe Newport is probably the best the British can do. The war will go to the South and the Caribbean. So I'm going to end this video because I wanted to keep this video to just the problems of American Revolution games. And I'm not, taking a backhanded slap at all the Revolution games that have come before. I've bought many of them, and I've played many of them, and I've liked them all for different reasons. And more than once I've said it, my old favorite still comes up all the time. This old SPI, American Revolution. I think Mr. Dunnigan was pretty close to getting it right the first time. Anyway, I'll end the video there, and that's all I have to say about the problems of games covering the entire Revolution. And thank you for watching.